And are we recording?
Yes.
Welcome to another artist talk this week, Inspiration and Adaptation with Homer Potter, Jeff Szarzi, Dave Kaufmann, and Cynthia Morelli. I'm Asia Freeman, coming to you from the lands of Michiltana, the Ninilchik Village tribe on whose land the Nell Street Art Center stands. It's a pleasure to be with you and talk about pottery and what it's like to live as a potter in these times, and just before the weekend of the Homer Pottery Tour. So super exciting to have Jeff, Dave, and Cynthia with me here today, and anyone who might be joining us out in the ethers. Welcome, everyone. Today, I'm excited to talk about what potters can teach us about centering in times of transition and disruption. I'm thinking about the fact that on a regular basis, you all deal with incredible variables like kiln function, temperature, kiln environment, and also that act of building and centering, often at the wheel. I'm sort of reminded somehow of the way, and I'm thinking contextually these times, how in the midst of variables that you have to work with in your practice and these times that we're living in, there's got to be something about the studio process, the work at the studio table or the wheel that's a little bit like, is it like the center of the kind of the quiet center of a kind of storm of movement and stimulation in which you find like that quiet eye, which they say in the middle of the vortex, you know, of a hurricane or a whirlpool is peaceful. I'm curious to know how you think about those things. And so I'm just going to throw out a question, and any and all of you can answer it, of course. What for you is like the mantra or the kind of thought, if you do come back to one, when you are holding a lump of earth, a lump of clay in the center of the spinning wheel? Do you find yourself focusing on certain kind of thoughts? And even just from the level of your breath and your body, how does it affect you to take a piece of earth and pull it in the middle of that kind of movement to the center of this spinning, you know, machine that you are in control of? Can we start there?
I could jump in. I guess I like the centering metaphor. That's always a nice one to have in mind. I will say for myself, I probably, you know, in any given moment of throwing pots, yeah, really what it is in my own head is like a repetitive thing to do that kind of functions as a kind of meditative process. Maybe meditative is not quite right, because actually my mind does a lot of wandering during those repetitive moments, and I really, you know, I cherish that monotony and repetition because it provides a space for my brain to do what it does while my hands are focusing on other things. So I guess that's a little bit of a entry point to that answer.
Yeah, and I would say, I mean, as a person who meditates, it's sort of a myth that our mind doesn't wander. In fact, it's always doing this. And meditation is like wandering, centering, wandering, centering. But I appreciate, you know, what you're saying. What do you think, Jeff, Cynthia?
I was, you know, to segue with David, it's definitely, you know, I listen to music and podcasts. I have things going on around me when that's happening. You know, if I putting that lump of clay or that slab of clay in front of me, it's always 3 weeks down the line is where my mind is initially, because, you know, I make it and then I'm going to decorate it and then I'm going to glaze it. So all those pieces, you know, go into the, you know, what I'm creating, you know, the form, the functionality of the pot. So So it's kind of, it's long-term thought is what I think. I think 3 to 4 weeks ahead of that pot's life.
Hmm. And what about, does it have a calming effect on your body to sort of like take your energy and draw it toward the center? I mean, I assume that as you do it repeatedly, there's a certain posture or, you know, position that you come to. And like, does your body get tense, as I imagine mine would, like pulling in that way, or does it calm your breath and sort of like do something as a physical process that is centering too in your body?
I think for me, it's more of a stress on the body than anything else. I think I'm sort of constantly trying to find ways to work on the ergonomics. I could get into the details of that, but I wish I had that connection, something like a yoga practice and combined with a pottery practice, but I don't. And yeah, I would say it feels more like I'm trying to stave off damage than anything else.
Yeah, I can segue on that again, because I only try to limit myself to, not throw more than an hour for sure, maybe even 45 minutes, get up, do some stretch, and then, have other things going on. So again, back to what David was saying in the beginning, I probably have, upwards of 4 to 5 tasks in the studio in the day. And I like that because it keeps me excited and fresh physically and mentally. It fits with my personality that way.
So that's interesting. Rather than my notion that the act of centering is a meditation, what you're saying is it's a little bit of the movement and transition between all the different sorts of tasks you do in the studio that actually has that sort of refreshing effect. Wonder what you're thinking, Tara.
Are you thinking me? Did you?
Sure. Yeah.
Oh, well, I find that my eyes are the most active when I'm working, either on the wheel or not on the wheel. And that if my head can stop actively being involved, then I am feeling more successful about my work. Of course, my head is making decisions, but I feel like my eyes are the main guide. And the thoughts, sometimes if thoughts generate, that it's better if I can get out of my head, I'm trying to say, I guess. And it's not really meditation, I don't feel. For me, I feel like it's an active participation, especially visually.
So that's really interesting. I'm thinking about these particular times that we've been living through and how the studio process functions. As you know, COVID-19, I heard yesterday from a doctor, is officially endemic. It's here to stay, like polio or TB, diseases that don't go away. They'll adapt and we will with it. In the midst of that, as working artists, you have a practice that's very, well, like many artists, it's kind of, dare I say, ritualistic or repetitive, certain ministrations and labors in the studio. Did you take comfort in that in pandemic times? Were you able to get work done in a normal fashion, or was it very disrupted? Let's start with.
I had a friend say to me that you've been preparing for this for about the last 4 years. So, for me, it wasn't much of a shift because I'm, basically in the studio all the time anyway. So for me, it was pretty easy transition. but that's just me.
Was that a solace that you had work that you could just continue to do? Did you worry about like what would happen to your market?
Yeah, I was curious, but it did the weirdest thing. It like just kind of really picked up, and people were at home, on the computer, and that's the way, I do a lot of communicating, and so it stayed it stayed steady, which I thought I prepared for it not being, and started taking more risks in the studio, just thinking, oh, I'll just start doing more different things, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, people want this and they want that, and it's like, oh, okay, I'm pretty busy again. So, and it stayed like that. So.
How about for you, David?
I had a sort of similar experience. My day-to-day didn't change very much, and I did worry at the beginning. We missed a whole bunch of fall markets that we usually go to in Anchorage and all that. And I have to say, like Jeff, people filled the gaps. What happened for me was that I started getting orders, which is something that I've been kind of pushing towards. And that really filled the gaps of other retail sales that I normally would have done. So that was kind of amazing to just have that happen, and I felt very lucky. And I guess I'll say, just more broadly, I've been thinking a lot about being a potter, especially like trying to make a living making pottery as very much an act of faith. It always feels like, gosh, could this really work? Is this really gonna happen? And like, aren't everyone's cupboards already full? But I guess I'll just keep making these pots, because that's what I know how to do, and I think I'm good at it, and I'll just keep going. And at every turn, it just keeps working somehow. And I've been reminded of that this year.
All years. That's really great to hear that. Have you been reassured as well, Cynthia? And can you turn on your video, please? We'd love to see you.
I'm eating.
Okay.
It's been a very odd year for me. I've been drawing, and I've been studying more about using local materials. So I've taken Zoom workshops, which has been wonderful to be able to have access to this online workshop sort of activity, which normally I would have had to travel. And so those sorts of things have been making me feel more involved with a larger group of people, I'd say. And then in terms of actual making, I've been kind of up and down, in and out. I tend to, when a cycle of making and then I fire, and then you're ready to start again starts, I've always struggled with the getting started again. And the pandemic has definitely exacerbated that, partly because I was away last summer. My father passed away, so I was away taking care of his affairs. And then coming home, I just felt like there was a new orientation for me in the studio. It's been an odd year for me. I have to say, I've found myself struggling to really push to be more online. And I was planning to open my back porch gallery here in the summer of 2020, so that I didn't open. So I'm kind of not really established with like an online venue and that sort of thing. And my new gallery space is on pause. So I'm not sure what this summer will look like in terms of that. But I'm still making things, and I feel like this is actually giving me a little bit more time to do more research and to just kind of pause maybe and not feel like, oh, I have a deadline of I have to make this for this or something like that. So it's I'm hoping that it will come out on the other end as a very productive time, but it hasn't, I have not been producing a lot of work. No, we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah. How about you, Tara? I'm curious to know if your studio process has been disrupted significantly, as Cynthia speaks of, or if it's felt persistent and continuous, as Jeff and David have talked of.
Okay, Asia?
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. Okay. Yeah, the Jars of Clay studio experienced a huge disruption. Last summer season, we took the pandemic very seriously, and you know, because Ruby is an older adult, she's in the vulnerable population, and so we split up. I took Bisqueware out to my house and I sledded it out in crates and decorated from there. And then like some people in the pottery community here in Homer, it was kind of an opportunity to do online sales. So we got that set up. It's a huge learning curve. I remember Ruby saying that, you know, it kind of allowed, not having the pressure of having a store open allowed for the expansion of creativity and drawing ideas from different sources, like in her garden and that kind of thing. And so there's probably a lot of parallels between the sort of productivity pause that happened in March 2020 and a lot of other different trades and professions than just pottery. And I think we experienced that as well.
And what's your anticipation for how the summer, you know, will work for you?
I have a lot of hope. I think people are sort of cautiously re-entering the world, and I think there's still people who want to, you know, purchase pottery and see what people make. It's never the same thing twice, and that's what I think what the appeal of things that are handmade is. So yeah, I think I'm already seeing Homer picking up with visitors, and I think we're really lucky for that. So I think we're going to come back stronger than ever.
What will the Jars of Clay hours be like this summer, and how about the studio tour? What will the role be of Jars of Clay with the studio tour?
Yeah, so our studio is going to be open on the weekends. Part of the additional challenge of the pandemic is, you know, taking on family roles and responsibilities, and Ruby is full-time childcare for her grandkids. So, so we have reduced hours just on Saturdays, and for the Homer Pottery Tour, it's the same thing. We're going to be opening up for tours this Saturday from 10 to 5, and I love the tour because it's such a unique opportunity to tell people what is kind of behind a simple seeming cup. the whole process that we shepherd this material through and the transformations that it undertakes. So yeah, we'll be open on Saturdays, and the tour is this Saturday, tomorrow, from 10 to 5.
Thanks. David, what role will your studio have in the tour?
We are open both days, 10 to 5, Saturday and Sunday, and we will be unloading actually 2 kilns tomorrow, Saturday. Our large car kiln got fired day before yesterday. We're actually waiting an extra day to unload it when folks are around. And then we had a little bit of extra stuff that didn't fit in that, and we fired our little kiln, and that's going up right now. So we don't typically do that. It's a new thing we're trying. I think it stresses us out a little bit to unload the kiln with visitors, but we're gonna give it a try, and we got plenty of space outdoors and people can spread out. So we're not too worried about that. And we're just happy to have folks come by, learn a little something, and be part of that process with us.
And that's you and Paul Dungan at about 7 miles East End Road.
That's right. And actually, Katie Miller is also a part-time participant in the studio, and she'll be around for that as well.
Wonderful. What about studio hours this summer?
Beyond that, we're pretty much just open 7 days a week. I would just call it normal business hours. Just, you know, almost always there's somebody here, and if there's not, you know, you can call us, or it sort of functions as a self-serve operation.
The take pot, leave money sort of ethic?
Yeah, but you're pretty much always going to run into someone if you come sometime between 9 and 5, say.
Mm-hmm. So Cynthia, how are you going to participate in the studio tour? And what are your thoughts about studio accessibility this summer?
Yeah, I'm a virtual participant in the tour, and I have offered FaceTime appointments if people want a one-on-one. You can email me at cmorelliclay@gmail.com for an appointment. That's on my website if you need that address. And just put FaceTime in the subject line of the email. So that's happening as if you want to be closer. And otherwise, I'll be posting a few short videos throughout the weekend. I have to rebuild my bag wall in my small kiln. So that's the main focus. I wanted to try and use this time when I won't be interacting with people live here at home to show a little bit of something that maybe you would never imagine is part of a potter's day. Demolishing a brick wall that's glazed together basically by melted ash and rebuilding it. So that's my main focus. And I do have an online shop on my website that I've updated, and that will go live tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. and to launch the tour. And this summer I have not decided, I guess. I've not quite, we've took the time of being closed to start rebuilding the entryway to the back porch gallery because we needed a place where every winter in the spring, the snow avalanches off our roof on that side. And so we had to make a safe entryway. We just don't use that door in the winter, but we wanted to make it welcoming. And so there's a lovely arch made of driftwood that Taro has put together last fall. And the roof and stairs are yet to be built. So I'm not sure if the back porch gallery will be open, but I have the intention, and I have already brought in some more work to Bunnell to have work in town where people could see in person, as well as trying to keep my online store active.
Mm-hmm. Last summer, or I should say the summer before, you were part of the Clayworks, and so you're not doing that anymore, huh?
Right. 2019 was my last year there. I did 10 years out there and I decided to open here, the back porch gallery. And so I'm in the middle of that transition still. And we'll see
Yeah.
what it brings. There'll be a way, like Dave said, it's about trust and looking for which path is going to be the most effective way for each person. And it was definitely, a leap of trust in a way to leave a place that has widespread traffic and just kind of tuck in more up here on the hill. So we'll see how it goes. And I'm still excited about it. I'm just not sure if it will be as immediate as I had thought. The other thing that's going on for me is that I did get a Rasmussen Fellowship in 2020, which was a surprise and a huge honor. And they allowed 2 years for that because of COVID. Usually it's a 1-year time frame. And my proposal was to bring women to work with me here in the studio. That was one main aspect of it. So we've been scheduling and rescheduling that. There's going to be a workshop scheduled where Lindsay Osterritter, who will teach a reduction cooling wood fire workshop this fall here. That's still scheduled. We had postponed it from the fall of 2020 to the fall of 2021. And then the other part is 3 women sculptors are coming late October through early December. And we will make work together and are excited about the dialogue that will happen amongst the 4 of us. That it's going to be something that I feel will bring so much energy and professionalism and like probing and questioning into my space. So we'll make work and fire together. And we're looking for a spot place in Anchorage to have an exhibit from that. So that's going on as well. Lots of interaction with others who will be coming here.
At this point, when are you scheduled to do these activities?
The workshop, the firing workshop with Lindsay Osterritter, I believe the date is September 25th through, it's a 7-day workshop. And the details are on my website on the events page. And then the women coming to work will be October 20th through December 3rd are our planned dates.
So Lindsay's workshop, is that open to potters broadly in the community and beyond?
Yes, the Lindsay Osterritter workshop is open to participate. So there are still some spots left. I will probably take deposits in June. I've been waiting to see what the COVID situation is like and will we really be able to do it before I had people commit. But I've had quite a few inquiries from outside. So I'm really excited about both of those events and what they'll bring to Homer in general. I feel like the energy of clay connecting us to a broader world.
How did you find these women, Lindsay and the others?
Lindsay, I've met at the wood firing conferences that I got to go to because of the Alex Combs Award those years ago. And she's she taught at university level and has been doing reduction cooling since her graduate school days in Utah. And it's a very subtle surface that I think of it as kind of moody and dark, but it's very rich and quiet and subtle. And so I've admired her work and that process, and I'm excited to learn from her. And the others, I've met some at the conference, and then another from the workshop that I took at Penland. There were connections. One was there, and one is the partner of one of the assistants who was there. And there are 3 sculptors based in LA, Minneapolis, and Chicago. And we've never all 3 met together, so that'll be really interesting. We're a wide age range and diverse backgrounds, and each making sculpture. I'm the only one of the 4 of us who has their own wood fire kiln. So I feel like my kiln is able to be the kind of the link that's bringing us together. I'm very excited.
Wonderful. There's a theme that you brought up that I think is really fascinating. You're describing some major sort of like slowing down. Some might call it a setback. You take it patiently, this idea of having 2 years to unfold in this planned workshop process, and the transition from working on the spit to opening a studio on the back porch, which may or may not be open. And there's so much patience at the heart of that. You mentioned something about trust, and it occurred to me that potters really lean into trust in the most extraordinary way at every stage of the process, don't you?
Well, I think that there's certainly a lot of knowledge, so kind of educated based in terms of the science of clay and all that. But for me, I feel a very important part of my work, and I embrace chance usually. So in this case, in terms of the pandemic, I feel like I've really had to question myself about that. Do I really embrace all these unknowns? Because it's very uncomfortable. But I'm trying to let myself take the time that I'm requiring.
Yeah, at essence, you're sort of reaffirming that you want to trust and you want to grow in the ways of patience and persistence. What do you think about that, Dave? That idea of leaning into trust.
I identify with that trust anxiety relationship, and I feel like that's where the material is most helpful, because it's so direct and such a pleasure to interact with, that when you feel those moments of uncertainty and not total confidence in your faith in what you're doing, you come into contact with that material and you work with it, and it reassures you.
What about you, Jeff? You had a show this year, and I can't forget this extraordinary post, I think, on Instagram, where you showed like the total meltdown, not just of pots and glaze, but kiln shelves, and you just had like this crazy setback, and yet you persist. You leaned into trust. Was that because you had a commitment to show, or you were really truly determined to learn from and master that situation? I'm curious what your thoughts are, Jeff.
Yeah, I think it's the latter, because you're always trying to, what's that last kiln load gonna be like, and that, I'm always shooting for that, that pot and that last kiln load going, oh yeah, that's it, I did it, and okay, now I want to try this. And so it's the persistence for sure. Yep. Whether, I took the risk and I was cavalier about something, or I babied it. It's all about, it's the persistence. It's that final outcome of, the kiln opening and getting that effect I want.
But it's like being a miner, like deep underground, with a risk of like shaft collapse, but the possibility of finding gold.
Yeah, that's a good metaphor.
I'm not made for that.
It's a great metaphor, because everything we use is mined.
I want to talk.
Yeah, just to elaborate on that, I mean, right now during the pandemic, there's a FRIT 3195 that's not going to be available for some time. Telk itself, the company just went through bankruptcy, so it's gone. The way the mines work, into the shaft and the material itself changed. So, Edgar a kaolin called EPK, changes over time. Or a feldspar, like, I don't want to get too technical, but those things will change over time. And all of a sudden, for a glaze geek like me, who's always looking at spreadsheets and stuff and looking at what the manufacturer has given you as far as, what elements are in there, and all of a sudden that's changed. And it's like, you go into a tailspin trying to get that new data put in, and, chasing those variables around creates that anxiety that David was talking about for me, for sure. The mining thing, that's a good metaphor. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Tara, what do you think about the condition of setting yourself to lean into trust, and how do you manage the anxieties of the many different stages and variables that are intrinsic to making pot?
Did you say my name?
I did.
Okay, could you repeat the first part of the question? My connection's a little spotty.
I'm just curious about how you relate to the opportunity and challenge of leaning into trust. How does working with clay help you manage, or does it, anxiety and also risk and the reward? Like what for you is sort of like the leading inspiration to dance with this difficult partner?
Yeah, there's like this meditative mantra that I learned about last year, and it's I can't recall the name of this particular law, but basically it's about letting go of outcome, and that has been the most helpful for me mindset of approaching the clay. There are certain things that you can do, and forms and motifs that that you can produce over and over again because you practice it. But there's a variable along the way that will sometimes come up and sort of rain on your parade, and learning to let go of that is just a process of getting to practice letting go a lot. And the sooner you do let go, I think as a potter, like if you can let go in the green stage versus the final glaze stage, the less disappointment you feel, really. So it's taught me to trust my instincts for whether a path is worth pursuing or not. And it's also taught me that it's not the end of the world if things don't turn out the way that you imagined them, because there's always an opportunity to try again if that's what you want to do.
Does anybody else identify with that particular last distillate thought that Tara offered about the idea of letting go of the result and embracing like what unfolds there, the gifts that unfold there? I guess that must be deeply a part of your ethos as potters, just surrendering it at so many stages.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, that's, and when I teach kids, it's really hard, but, I try to instill that in them in some way too. It's because, they all want to hold on to that first pot they made with the 2-inch walls. And it's just like, you can let that go. And there's more time. You can, you could, take what you learned from this and go to the next step. And No, it's so important. It's just like a metaphor for life, is the way I look at it.
Mhm.
I always thought fly fishing taught me patience, because knots and everything like that, and being patient for the fish. And then this has given me, this art form has given me that aspect of letting go. I think Tara did a good job of explaining that.
I often find when talking with artists, or talking with people in general, they'll sort of riff on what a sort of control freak they might say they are, like about the results that they want and how they want to control them. But it occurs to me that you just really can't be a control freak and be a potter. Is that true?
You can try.
Yep.
I feel like I would give Jeff a little bit of a hard time on that one. But I think we all understand that, I know for myself, I'm definitely trying for certain results that I want to repeat often. And I'm also trying to be open to the thing that I didn't expect that maybe is better than the thing that I did expect.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I was going to say, is it's a balance between having control and having reproducibility, which I was just working on. It's very scientific principle. Like, can you control it in such a way that you can reproduce the results, and can you also open yourself up to being surprised pleasantly by the result?
Yeah, it really seems like there's a lot of philosophical motivation to make peace with the idea of aiming and making plans, but also not being too attached to keeping them. Not that you might not steer yourself towards certain results, but that you would willingly and consistently have to embrace a response that's also very much like being in a sustainable relationship with anything or any being or anyone. There's so much life in the studio process, isn't there? Like the clay itself, how it behaves, and then the kiln environment, and it just sort of pushes back the way loved ones do with their own sorts of challenges and agendas.
Yeah, just the weather. It was so dry this winter that when I was getting ready for the show, I just had a lot of issues of things drying too fast, and I had to, figure that out. And now I'm looking at these platters that I did the same thing that I built in February, the same process, same clay, and I don't have that problem right now. We've had some nice humid weather we went through, and the internal climate of the shop is changing now, so you've got that to deal with too. Yeah.
Wow. So I'm curious to talk a little bit more about clay and mining. I don't know a lot about clay sustainability, but a lot of us are thinking about planetary sustainability and extraction. Could you talk a little bit about how clay is harvested, where generally the clay you work with is coming from, and how you feel about the resource management?
Clay is mined all around, and our materials that we buy are very processed. So to get what Jeff was talking about, kind of a pure material, they're super processed. And I've been, over the last year especially, trying to I've been testing a mixture, a blend of local clay, which is a low temperature clay, with a stoneware that I purchase that's been mined and blended, so that I can use more local clay that I collect myself on a smaller scale, like from somebody perhaps excavating a house site or I don't know, it's, I'm not quite to that point yet, but to stop shipping in so much and be more responsible for collecting and knowing where my clay comes from, and glaze and slip materials as well. So, I mean, I'm such a newbie at it. I'm just beginning, but that's my goal, partly in terms of the global climate, to stop shipping stuff around so much, which is ironic that now I'm trying to do more online in terms of sales of my work. So it's a real struggle, I think, in terms of energy consumption.
Do others of you struggle with that as well? I'm just learning about, these things, so I'm curious.
I definitely do as well. I think about it a lot. And it's like so many things. It's not the clay itself coming out of the earth that's harmful. It's the fuel cost of moving this stuff around the world, and moving it up here and then shipping it out, as pottery. I love, Cynthia, that you're working in that direction. It's kind of something that I daydream a lot about, is moving towards playing around with what we have here as a local material. I think about how not that long ago, anybody that made pots, the pots that they made were dictated by the material that was in their place. Mm-hmm. And so in that sense, the art that they're making is a collaboration between an individual and a place. And I love that conceptually. And I also think it's a great thing to strive for, just morally and ethically, where we're at with using fossil fuels to move heavy things around the planet. But I'm also balancing that with, I kind of am working in a particular way right now, and I have an audience that appreciates it, and there's like some commerce that's going on that's helping us sustain our lives. So yeah, where to fit those things together.
So as we kind of round out the hour here, I have one thought or a question that I'm curious to ask of you all, whether individually or collectively, anyone could start. And that's the question of what if. So if you think about our clay kind of ecosystem here, that you speak of, with extractive pressures on the one hand, and, for supporting self and family on the other, and the collaboration with place and the possibilities through visiting artists, materials coming in, sending pots out. What if you could build the thing that you dream of here for Homer in terms of really sustaining and supporting the clay community? What would you love to see? Whether it's something that would just take local potters leaning into it as a physical effort, or if you had more resources, what would be, and do you spend much time thinking about what could happen to really help support and sustain the clay scene here? Big dreams.
I think something like a grant that supports an artist during a time of trying something like that out is helpful. And maybe that's part of what you're doing, Cynthia, with your fellowship. And so that's what it feels like to me, is to work towards that. I would need to be able to stop doing what I'm doing most of the time.
Mm-hmm. And
having the support to kind of step off the treadmill in a way and experiment and research is the thing.
Exactly. Yep.
And I think that this type of discussion, I just read Rika's comment about how things are relating to inspiration and adaptation. I think that this kind of discussion is so nurturing for me personally in terms of the clay community, because we've not been focusing on like how to throw something. We've been talking about so many other topics that surround what happens conceptually with our process. That to me is very valuable in nurturing and supporting the clay community here. Thank you for posing the questions and providing the platform.
Absolutely, that's part of Brunel's mission, and of course a personal passion of mine is thinking about how we can strengthen the fabric of, you know, economically, physically, and socially. And I'm so lifting up the question of what if we had, what if we did. I'm really curious about that. What are your thoughts on that, Jeff?
Could you go ahead and repeat that question? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm just asking, you know, at this point, asking you to consider or express what you might love to see happen for clay in Homer, for the clay, if you have an aspiration for the clay community or for yourself that could be sustaining and uplifting. What if you had the resources to do it? What might be a bigger dream that you have been holding? Or
I like what Cynthia has going on with the workshop, bringing other people in outside. Is great. I just love learning. So, you know, having workshops come here, or even, you know what, just gathering for a beer is really nice. That's one thing that we did. It goes back to what Cynthia was saying about having conversations. We don't do that. We just don't. We're all busy. We all have families. We all have this pottery studio lifestyle. And when we do the pottery tour, it's really nice because we're able to get together and sometimes go off on tangents and not talk about the pottery tour, and maybe talk about pots and some of these technical things, ideas. So I really appreciate that, having that opportunity. We're pretty spread out, you know, so.
We always talk about the idea of we need like a ceramics, a Homer clay office party, you know, a couple times a year. Because the tour kind of does that a little bit. Like you said, at our meetings, we get to chat at other stuff, but you know, then we don't for most of the year. It'd be nice to get together, not around such a goal that we're trying to accomplish something.
what do you think, Tara? Just curious to know if there's certain needs that, you know, as an individual artist, a studio artist, or as a community member of clay people, there are things that you wish, you know, could happen collectively or individually to support growth.
Well, my perspective is from growing up in a community where ceramics is not really a part of it. So coming in from the outside and seeing and being a part of the clay community in Homer, my perspective is that there's already so much rich collaboration and diversity in the clay community here for a town so tiny. So I would just want to acknowledge where we are and how wonderful it is, and that we're still striving to collaborate even more with the Pottery Tour and to learn from each other as well. You know, even across age levels, with kids who get to experience clay workshops thanks to the volunteer time of some of the people here, and in elementary school and all through high school, they have access to a pottery studio. So I would say that, you know, Homerites are kind of living the dream here. And my hope is that it will continue, and it will continue to grow on the path that it is already.
One thing that David did, well, maybe it was 4 years ago, he had a workshop up at the high school with the high school pottery kids, and he had, you know, the local potters come in and teach techniques to kids, and that was really fun. So that's something that would be nice to continue.
It's reassuring. It's great to speak with you all. It's reassuring to know that there's a level of ranging from patience to outright excitement and optimism about the resources that we have here and the way that you're able to work as individuals and community. And I just want to thank you so much for joining us today, for this conversation, for joining together. And we're super excited about the studio tour tomorrow, starting out at 10 a.m., 10 to 5 a.m. tomorrow. And for more information about that, you can, what are the ways that people can find out more about those things? I know we've got postcards here at Bunnell that tells you who's in the studio and who's online. Anything else I should mention?
Yeah, Bree put the website up there, homerpotters.com, and you can also search for Homer Pottery Tour on Facebook or Google probably, and find the info. And I would just say thank you, Asia, and both Brianna's and everybody else down there at Bunnell for doing this and for supporting us in other ways. You know, we feel it.
Yeah.
Adele has, you know, always speaks to what a pleasure it is to work with all of you, and the tremendous amount of support you provide as makers of plates for Bunnell's Plate Project, and you know, working in that sense collaboratively with us and the painters in this community. And Jeff is doing all the firing of the plates. We're immensely grateful. That project opens on actually May 21st as the preview begins here at Bunnell, where higher levels of donors can select plates, and they'll remain on view for a month after that, with the general plate level premium available for your selection at the $125 level of contribution starting May 28th. It's just amazing. All these years. I think it's
We'll also see Jeff's show.
Oh my gosh, it's such a beautiful show. It's so beautiful. You've got to come down and see this beautiful show.
Yeah,
Born of so much patience and knowledge and experimentation. Thanks, Potters. Look
Thank
forward
you.
to seeing you in the studio and on the tour. Talk to you soon.